Locho sampo pagyu trashi pa tuche tempe chinle yarngo da pege drulo zambe zebrache pande lame shabla solwa de Omo a guru vajradara sumatimo nishasane karm Uta varda nyeshre badra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum Om Guru Vajradhar Sumatimo Nishasane Karm Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarvas Om Guru Vajradhar Sumatimo Nishasane Karm Utta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Pakyuke kudan dagi lo, pakyuke sundan dagi nga, pakyuke tukdan dagi yin, yerme chikto jingi lo. Makyuke kudan dagi lo, makyuke sundan dagi nga, makyuke tukdan dagi yin, yerme chikto jingi lo. Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakya Munye Swaha Om Muni Muni Maha Shakya Munye Swaha Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakya Munye Swaha. Sangye chedan tsoge chanam la chancho pardo dani kyapsu che dagi jinso gibe sonam ki drola pinchira sangye druparsho Sangye chedan tsoge chanam la chancho pardo dani kyapsu che Dagi jinso gibe sonam ki drola pinchira sangye druparsho Sangye chedan tsogi chonam la chancho pardo dani kyapsu chi Jinso gibe sonam ki drola pinchira sangye druparsho In the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge into enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Yesterday, I was reading the commentary, yesterday late afternoon, I was reading a commentary on the 7 Points Mind Training, a commentary written by one master called Yunzin Yeshe Gyaltsen. Yunzin Yeshe Gyaltsen was one very important Lama from Tashilumpo, and he wrote many, many important texts for practice, like very practical texts and very, very clear texts, like the commentary on the Guru Puja, and he wrote a commentary on the 7-point mind training and many other practices. There is actually 19 volumes of his texts. So yesterday afternoon I took one of these volumes, which is the commentary on the 7-point mind training. If we put into our page system, it's like maybe 1,200 pages, something like this, on the 7-point mind training. I started reading it yesterday afternoon. And maybe I arrived like in the Tibetan page 25, so it's like 50 pages, more or less. And it's in the very beginning of the text, but it was very beautiful because it's the part in which was dividing. I went through the first 2 chapters. So the first 2 chapters is the first one in which he's talking about the importance of the gurus through which this lineage arrived to us. So where he's explaining the whole lineage, from Buddha Shakyamuni, how it passed to Bodhisattva Manjushri, then how Bodhisattva Manjushri, Buddha Manjushri, then after passed to Nagarjuna, then how Buddha Shakyamuni passed it to Maitreya, how Maitreya passed it to Asanga, and like how it came the whole lineage down up to us. No? And basically, this lineage, it comes mainly to 3 main lines of transmission of teachings. One is from Nagarjuna, one is from Asanga, and one is from Shantideva. We have these 3 lines that they joined together in Guru Suvarnadipa from Sumatra, and then from him to Atisha. And there he's explaining each one of the gurus, name by name, and life story of each one of them in detail, some of the stories very much in details, explaining up to arriving to himself, how all of this came to him. And it's interesting to see that actually the lineage of the Lojong, the 7-point mind training, one of the main monasteries where it's kept alive was Tashilhunpo, which is the monastery to which we have a very direct connection. No? I received these teachings in Tashilhunpo, from the lineage which was transmitted inside Tashilhunpo, that goes back to Gyaltsen Yeshe Gyaltsen, that goes back to Panchen Lobsang Chokyi Gyaltsen, that goes back to Lama Tsongkhapa, and so on. So, we are very fortunate in that. So there is explaining the great qualities of every master of the lineage and how they practice and how they transmitted the teachings and so on. And just one correction of what I said the other day. I said that Geshe Chekawa stayed 2 years with Geshe Sharawa before receiving teachings on Lojong. Actually, it was 1 year. I had yesterday looking in the text, it was saying 1 year. Anyhow, the second chapter is talking about the importance of the teachings, the qualities of the teachings themselves. No? And very beautifully, many things, like even when we start the very text in the very beginning, we had 4 examples, no? Saying that these teachings are like the diamond, are like the sun rays, are like the medicine, and like the nectar. So actually, Gyaltsen Yeshe Gyaltsen is citing these 4 examples from the sutras. This is not some example that were invented by Geshe Chekawa. Actually, this is precisely making reference to the sutras from which these teachings come. So one thing he explains very clearly is saying, which is the line of transmission of these teachings from the point of view of the text itself. So we start with the Sutra of Perfection of Wisdom of Buddha Shakyamuni, which is in 3 versions. There is the long version, middle version, and short version. The long version of the Sutra of Perfection of Wisdom is 100,000 verses. Then we have the middle version, which is 20,000 verses. Then we have the short version that is 8,000 verses. Then there is an extremely short version, which is the Heart Sutra. But normally we call the short version the 8,000 verses. So this text, it's coming mainly from that. Then there is a commentary on the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, which is called the Abhisamaya Alankara, the Ornament of Clear Realization, taught by Maitreya, written by Asanga. And then like this we go on and on until we reach the teachings of Atisha on Lamrim, and on the gradual path to enlightenment. And then the 7-point mind's training is like an essential teaching on how to put direct into practice the teachings of Lamrim on the gradual path to enlightenment, which is a practical explanation of the gradual path to enlightenment as taught by the Abhisamaya Alankara, which is a commentary of the Sutra of Perfection of Wisdom of Buddha. So, and the 7-point mind training, it's also an essential point of practice of the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. it's also specifically coming from the Bodhisattva Charyavatara also, because there are 3 lineages inside the 7-point mind training, no? One is Shantideva, so it's coming from the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. So all the meaning and the practice of the Bodhisattva Charyavatara is inside the 7 points mind training also. So it's basically, and what Yonzin Yeshe Gyaltsen put very clearly, he was saying, in the times of the generation in which we live, and this was around 200 years ago, I suppose. I don't remember exactly when Yonzin Yeshe Gyaltsen was, but I suppose around 150, 200 years ago back in Tibet. And he was saying, at these times of the degeneration, people don't have any more space and time and ability to go to study all the sutras and to learn all the long texts and from that to understand and put into practice. Even the commentary, which is the Abhisamaya Alankara, which I have studied, like to really study it well, it takes like 9 years of full-time study. And still, it's a lot of knowledge and you don't know really how to put it into practice. Then you have the Lamrim, which is the essence of the Abhisamaya Alankara, which then is more practical. But still, if we go back to the sutras, we get completely lost. It's too much information. Everything is inside, but we don't know where to catch. We don't know, finally, we can study many things, but we don't know really how to put into practice. In the past, people had more time. They had more space. It was different. Like I remember a period in my life where I had more space for study. Like especially there was one time I was in Tibet for a few months and I was studying, I don't remember now precisely which text it was, but it was a very nice experience that I wanted all the long texts, The longer the texts were, the better it was. The more detailed it was, the better it was, because I had the inner space and the time to read it slowly and to go into details and to retain the information. Nowadays, I prefer short texts because my mind is also busy with other things. And if we look at the time in which we live, the context in which we live, it's very difficult for all of us to go through very long texts and study the Sutra of Perfection of Wisdom and then study the Abhisamaya Alankara and all of this with the commentaries and blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's wonderful, it's beautiful, but who can do this nowadays? Even in monasteries, truly speaking, is not easy. Because times have changed. So what Yonzin Yeshe Gyaltsen put very clearly, he says, because in these times of the generation, without an essential text, such an essential instruction, more than a text is an instruction, but without an essential teaching, without an essential instruction, such as the 7 points mind training, we do not have the possibility to put into practice the teachings in our daily life. Because it's too vast, it's too much, then we don't know how to, we don't know where to grab, we don't know how to apply. So we are very lucky that we have great masters that from century to century, they were bringing and adapting the teachings to the time in which they were. And then we get to these very essential teachings where everything is inside there. And it's bringing to us in a way how we can truly apply in our life. And this is something so amazing, so special. Okay, so this is really something of which we really need to be very grateful that we can have this opportunity. Okay? So now we go back to our text. Okay? So, yesterday we arrived in the second part of the second point from the 7 points. So the first point, as we saw before, was training the preliminaries. And training in the preliminaries, it means developing, in very few words, love towards ourselves, renunciation. Is this determination to develop our qualities, to be free from suffering ourselves, at least. And then we go to the second point, which is the actual practice, which is developing bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, relative bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment based on love and compassion towards others, through the practice of giving and taking, as we saw the day before yesterday, not last teaching, the one before. And then the day before yesterday in the last teaching, we were looking at the second point, which is training in the ultimate awakening mind, in absolute bodhicitta, which is the mind of wisdom. So we reach here in page number 41, the part which says, Tempa tobne sawate chanam milam tabursam, ma ge rik be shila che nyimbo nigen rangsar trul lamgi ngowo kunshin ngala sha tunsam gyume kibur cha. When stability has been attained, impart the secret teachings, which means stability, it refers to the mind of love and compassion towards others. Remembering that when we talk about love and compassion, it doesn't mean take away the cherishing for oneself. We don't need to eliminate self-cherishing. What we need to mean is that we need to expand self-cherishing. As much as we cherish ourselves, we need to cherish others also. So it's like a way of expanding our own mind. We all have this strong wish to be happy and not to suffer. We don't need to eliminate that. We simply need to expand it towards others. Okay? So once we are able to do that, when stability has been attained, impart the secret teachings. Start the part which regards the correct view of reality. Consider all phenomena as dreams. Examine the nature of unborn awareness. The remedy itself is released in its own place. Place the essence of the path on the nature of the basis of all. In the period between sessions, be a creator of illusions. Okay? So this part, which regards the training on wisdom, is divided into two parts, which is how to practice during meditation and how to practice between meditation sessions. And the first part is divided into three parts, which is to meditate on the lack of inherent existence, or to meditate on emptiness of external phenomena, to meditate on the emptiness of one's own mind, and to meditate on the emptiness of emptiness. Okay, we will go through each one of this. Repeating briefly what we saw the day before yesterday, about the first line here, which is talking about, when we start talking about the correct view of reality during meditation, how to train ourselves in wisdom during meditation, there are three types of meditations, three types of objects, three types of ways of realizing emptiness. The first line, which says, consider all phenomena as dreams, refers to realizing the emptiness of external phenomena. The second line, which says, examine the nature of unborn awareness, refers to meditating on the emptiness of one's own mind. And the third line, which says, the remedy itself is released is in its own place, refers to meditate on the emptiness of emptiness itself. Okay, so let's start with the first one, which we already have seen the other day in detail. Anyhow, consider all phenomena as dreams. So as you may have remembered, when we talk to consider all phenomena as dreams, if something is like a dream, first of all, means it exists. So reality does exist. If something does not exist, it cannot be like something else. Okay? So when we say consider phenomena as dreams, it means that all phenomena do exist. That's an important statement, just to make sure that we are not saying that things don't exist. They are like a dream means they are not a dream. They are like a dream. They have an aspect which is similar to the aspect of a dream. So here we have different examples, which we saw in more details last time, which there is the example of a dream, of the mirage, of the face in the mirror, the image of the face in the mirror, of the image of the moon in the lake, and of an illusion. Okay? Make like from a magician. So, just very briefly, the dream, what we see in the dream, it exists as the object of the dream, but it not exist as an actual object. If I meet someone in my dream, doesn't mean that I'm meeting this person physically. Making a more clear example of this, if I dream that someone dies, this doesn't mean that the person when I wake up is dead, right? Even in many traditions, when we dream someone dies, it means long life for that person, actually. So, it's not like I am dreaming that a person died, then when I wake up, I call the person, most probably the person will be alive. We never know, but most probably. So, what it means like the death of the person in the dream, it existed, but it's not an actual death of the person in the physical world. So based on this, what happened is that whatever we see in a dream, and most of the times we are not aware that we are dreaming, it appears as if it was real when actually it is not. The mirage, it means it appears as water when actually it's not water. The face the image of the face in the mirror, which is the example that I like the most, it means that when we look into the mirror, what we see? Our face, which actually truly is not our face. It's just the reflection of our face. But when we look to the mirror, what does it appear as? Seeing our face. Do we ever look in the morning and we see, oh, look at the reflection of my face? There is a black point here, up here in the reflection of my face? No. What do we think when we see the image in the mirror? When we look in the mirror? We think it's our face. It's really our face. That's how it appears to us. But if we analyze, is it our face? No. What are we seeing? Just a reflection. I really like this idea that it's not an idea, it's a fact that we have never seen our faces. No. Somehow it opens the mind when we understand that we have never seen our faces. For me, it has a very special meaning. All that we have seen is the reflection of our face, or an image that was made of our face. No? It's like, imagine what would happen if during our whole life we would always see our face reflected on a curved mirror. And then suddenly we have a flat mirror, and then we look, oh, what a strange face. No? So this is showing to us that actually, it's just based on the image that we are seeing, but truly we don't know what it is. So what is the illusory aspect of the image of the mirror? It appears as our real face when actually it is just a reflection of our face. Okay? Does the reflection of the face exist? Yes. But it does not exist as a real face. That's the illusory aspect. Then we have the moon in the lake. When we see the full moon, a beautiful night, and then we see the image of the moon reflected on the lake. Is the moon in the lake? No. Does it appear as being in the lake? Yes. And the last example is when there is a magician, an illusionist that comes and make an illusion. It appears as whatever he's showing to us when actually it is not. Okay? But even when we are on a plane, or when from here I look from the window and I see the houses on the other side of the hill, and I see these small houses, I can put them in my little finger here, I can cover the whole house only with my thumb. Doesn't that mean that the houses are so small? No, but they appear to be small looking from here? Yes. This is an illusory aspect, okay? So we can have illusory aspects based on the distance from where we are, based on our senses. There are many forms of illusions. But what does an illusion mean? Something exists, but it appears differently from what it is. Similar to that, all phenomena that we perceive, everything that we see exists, but it appears to us differently than what it actually is. So what is this illusory appearance, this illusory aspect? Reality appears to us as if it would be objective, as if it would be independent, autonomous, inherently existent, when actually it is subjective. So, if we ask ourselves, do we live in a reality that is objective, or do we live in a reality that is subjective? In other words, everything that is perceived, such as sound or anything else, does it exist in the same way for everyone, or it exists differently for each one of us? Differently. So, we live in a reality that is subjective. But even though the reality is subjective, how does it appear to us? As being objective, as if it was something that exists by its own characteristics, when we do not analyze. Okay? It's like the example when we are in front of an object of anger. Are we aware? Oh, look at that object to which I am projecting this and that meaning here and there, and because of the value that I attribute to it, I see it as an object of anger? Or it is an object of anger and no discussion, and why it is an object of anger? Because it is like this, and I am a victim of it. That's how we see it. The same thing is with an object of desire, no? One example that Lama Ganchen gave one time to me, which was very clear. I was driving with him, coming from Milan, and then we were on the road. There is a toll payment, and then there is a road that goes down, turning first to the left, then to the right. I just say this because many of us do this road very often, so that after we remember this teaching there. And anyhow, at that point there, Rinpoche gave me this example. I'm going to make the same example a little bit more colorful, okay? He made it more simple. I just give a little bit more color to it, but it's the same example. And he gave the following example. He said, imagine you go to a shop. You are walking in the shop, and then suddenly you see a clothes that you like, let's say a jacket. You see this jacket and you really think, oh, what a beautiful jacket, how nice it is. Look at the color, look at the shade, how is the cut. Look at the nice texture of the cloth and so on. Oh, what a nice jacket. Wow, so beautiful. I really want it. No, actually, I don't want it. I need it. You know why? Because very soon I need to go to this party, and I have this other part of the dress, maybe a skirt, maybe a trouser, whatever, and there is that other part of the dress, and I need a nice jacket that is fitting together with it, because actually in that party, there is that person that I want to show myself beautiful to that person. So I need to get the attention of that person, and so on. So in order to seduce better the person, I like to make myself beautiful. And so for that, I must have that jacket. Okay? Surely we don't make all this discourse verbally to ourselves, but indirectly we make this whole discourse to ourselves. So there we are, and we start flirting with the jacket. You know? Looking, oh, how nice jacket, I need you, please, I need you, how I do, oh, but it's so expensive. And then we start thinking, yes, okay, I can stop making this, or I don't go for dinner there, we make so I can get the jacket, or we have no problem with the money, but simply we say, okay, I need it and I want it. And there we are ready to buy the jacket. In that moment, this jacket, it's an object of desire. How does it appear to us as being an object of desire? Like we are a victim of a beautiful jacket? Or we make it beautiful because we attribute such meaning to it? How do we live it? We experience in the moment as if we were a sort of a victim. No, we are there, the jacket is beautiful, I have nothing to do about it. Like, I'm not buying it because I attribute such value to it. I buy it because it is beautiful and I need it. Okay, if we analyze, we see it differently, but without analyzing, in the moment we are there, we just want it. So, we are in the shop, ready to buy this beautiful, wonderful jacket to show ourselves to that person. And then suddenly, the person to whom we want to show ourselves arrives in the shop. The person comes into the shop, I'll say, oh, hello, how are you? Nice to see you here, then. Then look at the jacket and say, oh, what an ugly thing, Wow, it takes really courage for someone to dress in this way, And I don't know, people can be so stupid to spend so much money in things so ugly with such a bad quality. I don't know what happened to this world. People have no taste anymore, And I would never even talk to a person that is dressed like that, much less go out for dinner, I could not. I think, I'm sorry, but I have taste, and I'm not able to do it like that. So the person simply say, this is terrible, this jacket. And then look at the price, and it's not even made in Italy, So I'm sorry, that's too much, how people can just do these things. I really don't understand. And then the person say, okay, I need to go, goodbye. Come, go. And we remain ourselves with the jacket. Luckily, we have not bought it yet. Okay. So what happened? Did the jacket change or not? But did someone from the owner of the shop, someone come from the shop and change the jacket? What changed? The perception. What changed? The value that we attribute to it. But it changed from an object of attraction to an object minimum half attraction or neutrality. But do I still want to buy it? Not really. So this makes it very clear that actually it's all a matter of the value that we attribute, that we are in a subjective world. But the most interesting thing for me is that when we are in front of the jacket and we want to buy it, it appears to us objectively as being an object of attraction. And then when comes the friend and says that doesn't like the jacket, then it appears to us as being not an object of attraction objectively. It's not that we say, oh, look at that, now that I changed my perception, the jacket changed for me. We don't have even this awareness. So, reality appears to us in every aspect as if it would exist objectively, independently, intrinsically, when actually it is interdependent, when actually it is subjective. In other words, we are totally incapable of perceiving anything independently of our own self. Everything that we see, everything that we experience, it's a reflection of the education we receive, the culture in which we grow, the experiences we have had, the good experiences, the traumas, our karma, our mentality, everything that we have and we are, we experience reality through that every moment. But it appears to us as if it would exist objectively, when actually it is not like that. Okay? I think it's quite clear, right? So yesterday we went more into details about this, and today we'll go now to the next point. Okay? That's why we say consider all phenomena as dreams. So, the next part says, examine the nature of unborn awareness. Here it refers to meditate on the lack of inherent existence of our own mind. So let's try to understand something about this. Let's make the following example. We take two chairs, okay? We put one chair on one side of the gompa, one chair on the other side of the gompa. Then we sit in one chair. What this chair becomes? This chair. And the other chair becomes that chair. So there is this chair and there is that chair. The old example is this mountain and that mountain, okay? But let's make the chair. So I have this chair and that chair. It's very clear that is this chair and is that chair. Then I stand up from this chair and I go to sit on that chair. Then what that chair has become? This chair. And this chair became that chair. This and that only exist in relation to each other, actually. Okay? So I can exchange constantly. Depending on where I am, it will make the difference if it's this chair or that chair. Okay? It's the same thing if I ask you, what about the singing bowl? Is it big or is it small? What would you say? Big or small? It's big, it's small, I don't know. It depends what we compare it to, right? So actually big doesn't exist independently of the small, and the small also doesn't exist independently of the big. So how do I know that this is a big singing bowl? Only because in my mind all the references that I have are smaller than this, then I say it's big. Most of it. And I'd say generally it would be big, but actually there is another one which is there on the other table, on Rinpoche's throne, which is bigger. So compared to that one, it's small. So I will call a medium singing bowl. Because there are many that are smaller and there are some that are bigger, so finally it's a medium size. Okay? But what happens is that it only is big or it's small in comparison to something else. Okay? So, the same thing happens with the short and the long. Short and long in distance, short time, long time, and so on. So, there are things that they only exist in dependence of their opposite. Okay? So something is only big because we can compare to something else. If we had no any comparison, we could not say if it was big or small, if it was short or long, and so on. Okay? And very often we say something and we think it's long, we think is a lot, we think is many, we think is few, and then suddenly we have a different reference and then we change our idea. Okay? But the point which we need to come here is that one exists in dependence of the other. Okay? It's quite clear this, right? So, let's go to the actual point which we need to come here. When we listen to a sound, the sound exists, right? But does the sound that I perceive exists independently of my own sound consciousness, of my own sense consciousness, of my own mind that perceives the sound? No. We have seen this the day before yesterday, very in details, in which we saw that the sound that I perceive is a result of the vibration in the air, together with my own eye, with my own ear sense power, and together with my own sound consciousness, together with the value that I attribute to it. Okay? So, the sound that I perceive does not exist independently of the mind that perceives it. Clear? Okay? Like the image that I see doesn't exist independently of the value that I attribute to it. Okay? So, even our friend just made an example with which said there are clear statements that said that when in the beginning the Europeans they were colonizing South America and Central America, when they arrived, the local natives, they only understood that they arrived when they actually came, there were people coming in a distance in which they could recognize them as people very near to them. They stayed for a very long period near to the shores, like where it was possible to see on the horizon, but only with the boats, and they could not see it as boats. Why? Because they had no reference whatsoever of a boat. So if we do not attribute the value to something, we cannot perceive it. And in our perception, it doesn't exist. What exists? Colors and shapes that we don't give that attribute to it. Okay? So, in order for the sound to exist to me, I must perceive it. Okay? But then comes the next question, which is the mind that perceives the sound. I'm not talking about the general mind. I'm talking about the specific perception of sound. Does it exist independently of sound itself? Can I perceive the sound of the bell without the bell ringing? Can I see you if you are not present? No. Okay. So what happened is that whenever I see you, I am not able to see you independently of my own mind, right? I'm talking about, in this case, the mind that perceives shape, that perceives form. So what happens is that in the moment that I see you, I can only perceive you because there is the I consciousness and the value that I attribute to you. I'm unable to perceive you independently of that. On the other side, I cannot generate the mind that sees you if you are not there. Otherwise, I'm just going to be perceiving the memory of yourself. I have the mental image of you, but not seeing you. So this is bringing us to the second point here, which is the non-duality of object of perception and perceiver. Actually, the mind that perceives the sound cannot exist where the sound does not exist, but the sound itself cannot exist without the mind that perceives it. It's like the big and the small. Big is big, small is small. But big cannot exist without the small cannot exist without the big. This chair is this chair, that chair is that chair, but this doesn't exist independently of that, and that doesn't exist independently of this. So, this means that they have different appearances, but they are of the same nature. So internal reality and external reality, which means observer and object of perception, they are actually of the same nature. One does not exist independently of the other. The world that we perceive cannot exist without the mind that perceives it, but the mind that perceives cannot exist without the object of perception. So finally, I know it's maybe a bit too tricky, but what happens is that normally our tendency is like we have the tendency to be in this dualistic view in which I exist here and you exist there, and I have my mind that perceives you, so you exist independently, the object of perception exists independently, and the mind that perceives exists independently. Like when we play the bell, the sound is one thing, the mind that perceives it is something completely else. And one can exist independently of each other. Show to me. Can you generate a mind that perceives the sound without the sound? No. But can, on the other side, we perceive the sound without the mind that perceives it? Can the sound exist to me without the mind that perceives the sound? Also not. So one exists independence of the other. So this is showing to us that our mind itself lacks inherent existence. Our mind itself doesn't exist independently of the object of perception. Our mind itself is interdependent, but it appears to us as if it was autonomously existent, as if it exists inherently, objectively, and not in an interdependence with the object of perception and the previous thoughts and everything else. Okay? I know it's more difficult to understand. This is the second step. First, we need to understand the lack of inherent existence, the emptiness of phenomena. Then we go to understand the lack of external phenomena. Then the next step is to understand the lack of inherent existence of mind itself. Okay? Of our own mind. Bene. Okay, just one point about this, then after we'll go in more details. The main difficulty of understanding, meditating on the lack of inherent existence of the mind is that we are not even used to see the mind. Forget seeing the lack of inherent existence of the mind, And we are not able to meditate on the lack of inherent existence of something if we are not able to see that something. So normally in the text that teaches how to meditate on the lack of inherent existence of the mind, which is called the Mahamudra, the whole process is first we learn to observe the mind. Then once we know how to see our own mind, then we can see the lack of inherent existence of our mind. Okay? And this is what is taught in the teachings called Mahamudra. There is one text by Panchen Lobsang Chokyi Gyaltsen called The Root of Mahamudra, which I would like one day to teach. But it's a very nice text, but it's teaching us how to meditate on the emptiness of the mind, which is the second step when talking about meditating on emptiness. So, let's go a little bit to the next point, okay? Because these subjects are not so simple subjects. And I decide today to explain in a way that doesn't make it much more simple. But still, I think it is important. The third part, it says, the remedy itself is released in its own place. What is the remedy? Emptiness. Okay, the lack of inherent existence. That's what we call the remedy. It's released in its own place. So here we are supposed to meditate on the lack of inherent existence of emptiness itself. The emptiness of emptiness. But before understanding this, we need first to understand the fact that what is emptiness, first of all. Cool. So let's go through that. Definition of emptiness. Gakcha kaktsam gimmega. Emptiness is the simple negation of the object of negation. Okay? If we are more precise, is the known affirmative negation of the object of negation. The simple known existence of the object of negation, or the known affirmative negation of the object of negation. There are two types of negations, an affirmative negation and a known affirmative negation. An affirmative negation is when I say, today I will not eat. Now I will not eat. When I say, today I don't eat, is there any affirmation that is coming together with it? What do I mean? If I say, today I don't eat, other than the fact that I'm not eating today, what else do I understand? That at some other point later, I will eat, right? So now I am not eating. It means later I will eat. So this is what we call an affirmative negation. Okay, it's called mainga in Tibetan. Mega, which is a known affirmative negation, is when I say, I don't eat. Boom, finish, full stop. Which means I am negating something, but I am not affirming anything else. I'm simply saying, I am not eating. Finish. I'm not saying I'm going to eat later. I'm not saying I'm going to eat something else. I'm simply saying I'm not eating. So, generally speaking, there are these two types of negation. One is a negation that consequently, spontaneously brings another affirmation, and the other is a negation that brings no other affirmation. So, emptiness is a known affirmative negation, because it brings no other affirmation with it, of what? Of the object of negation. What is the object of negation? Let's try to understand it a bit better. The object of negation is the object of affirmation of ignorance. The object of negation of wisdom is the object of affirmation of ignorance. Let's try to see this. There are two types of ignorance. There is the ignorance of not knowing and the ignorance of wrong knowing. So the one that normally we call, that is the root of our suffering, is the ignorance of wrong knowing. Okay? Reality appears to us differently than what it is. No? It's like a dream. So it appears differently than what it is. That's why it's ignorance of knowing wrong, of wrong knowing. So, if I ask you, is there an elephant seated on my table? Here. Is there an elephant here? Sure not? Right? No elephant here, right? Can we say there is no elephant? Yes. Or a cat? No cat even. Okay? But an elephant is even more clear, right? So, if I ask you, is there an elephant here? We would say, no. So if I affirm to you, there is an elephant sitting in my table, what would you say? Is that affirmation right or wrong? It's wrong, right? So when I say, there is an elephant sitting in the table, what is the basis of the affirmation? The table. Okay? What is in the table? An elephant sitting. So, finally, what am I affirming? That there is an elephant sitting in the table. Okay? So, or if I say, I don't know, this table is made out of chocolate. This is a chocolate table. Is it true? No. So in the moment that I make, so what is the basis of affirmation? The table. What is the actual object of affirmation? Being made of chocolate, or having an elephant sitting on it, or both together, whatever. Okay? So what happened is that first we need to understand the object of affirmation is the elephant sitting in it. Okay? So if I need to negate this affirmation, what would I say? It's not true. There is no elephant sitting where? In the table. Or this table is not made of chocolate. Why? Because it's made of wood. Why I don't see an elephant? Because why there is no elephant? Because he would not fit and I see no elephant. Okay? So we have the basis, which is the table. The object of affirmation of ignorance, because an incoherent perception, which is the elephant on it, and the object of negation on the other side, which is the elephant on it. The difference is that I have the basis is the same. The object of affirmation or negation in reality is the same object. But in one case there is the negation, in the other case there is the affirmation. Okay? I don't know if this is clear. Again, on one side I say there is. What? The elephant on the table. On the other side I say there is not. What? The elephant on the table. So if we make a phrase, if we write down, in the middle we write, elephant on the table. Elephant sitting on the table. Okay? So this is the central phrase. On one part we put, there is. On the other side we put, there is not. With an arrow to the center. So in the center we have the object, which in relation to the negation is an object of negation. In relation to the affirmation is an object of affirmation. Okay? The object, it's always the same. Okay? So, when I ask myself, what is the object of negation of the wisdom? Is the object of affirmation of ignorance. I don't know if this is clear. What is the ignorance here? Grasping at the existence of an elephant sitting on a table. So when I say there is an elephant sitting on the table, this is ignorance because it's not true. So what is the wisdom that opposes to it? There is no elephant sitting on the table. The object of that is negated in wisdom is the same object that is affirmed in ignorance. Okay? So, to understand this better, we go back a few days ago when we were explaining that our mind is not capable to perceive two objects, our mind is not able to have two direct opposite thoughts at the same time. You know? Remember when we were saying, when we have a thought and we want to eliminate that thought from our mind, if we try just to eliminate it by sending it away, it sticks even more. It's not possible to just send it away. So what we need to do to eliminate a certain thought, we need to generate a direct opposite one, right? We made example, I like water, I don't like water, and so on, okay? Here it happens the same. So what is our ignorance that is the root of our suffering? Is it the mind that says the flowers are not interdependent? Or the flowers are not subjective? Or is the mind that says the flowers are objective? The flowers exist inherently as it appears. Our ignorance, it's a negation or it's an affirmation? In other words, our ignorance is in which we negate how things are or we affirm what they are not. We affirm what they are not. Because reality appears, are like dreams. It appears as something that actually it is not. What is this fake appearance? It appears to us as being of objective reality when actually it's not. So our ignorance is not a negation. We do not negate the existence of reality as it is. We affirm a reality that don't exist. It's clear this. So our ignorance is where we affirm phenomena to be of inherent existence, of objective existence, when actually they are not. Okay? So, again, on one side, I take the flower as the basis. On top of the flower, I will put one object, which is inherent existence. The flower, so it's composed in the following way. We have the flower is of inherent existence. So on top of the flower, I put inherent existence. And let's say on the side, I have is. On the other side, I have the same thing, the flower as the basis, the object, inherent existence. On the side, I say is not. This is the only difference between ignorance and wisdom. Ignorance say it is. Wisdom say it is not. The rest remain exactly the same. The basis is the same and the object is the same. In one case, it's an object of negation. In the other case, an object of affirmation. I don't know, is it clear this? So, again, I have an object, the basis. We cannot understand emptiness, we cannot meditate on emptiness without having a basis of emptiness. I need to have the flower, the table, the mind, whatever. There's always an object that is the basis, okay? So in this case, we use the red, beautiful flowers I have here, so we have the flowers. The flowers appear to me as being of inherent existence. So the flower is, our ignorance is the affirmation. The flower is objective. Okay? Exists inherently, exists objective. So this is the ignorance. Which is the wisdom? The flower, the same, is not, it's empty of being of inherent existence. So the object, the basis is the same, the object is the same. Inside of ignorance there is an affirmation, wisdom is the negation. Okay? And this makes it two opposite modes of apprehension. Okay? Now, this brings us to a very important point. Very, very important point. In the development of our own wisdom, what do we need to negate? The affirmation of inherent existence in generally, or the affirmation that we make? The affirmation that we make. So, in the development of wisdom, we should say that the object of negation of the wisdom that we shall generate is the object of affirmation of our own ignorance. Not of ignorance in general. The wisdom is the negation, is the mind that negates the object of affirmation of our own ignorance. So that's why if I am not able to recognize what is the object of affirmation of my own ignorance, I will never be able to develop true wisdom. Because I have the basis, the object. It is not. But if I negate something that is in a different level, that is not the same object and is not the same basis, then it's not a direct opposite thought. So, it's like the affirmation it is, the negation that is able to eliminate this affirmation must be put exactly on the same level, on the same thing. It must have the same basis and the same object, and not something different. The danger that happens often is that we negate the existence of inherent of true existence, we negate inherent existence, we negate objective existence. But in a general level, yes, phenomena like inherent existence, but we don't see, we don't look at, we do not observe, we do not recognize the object of affirmation of our own ignorance. If we are not able to see our own mind grasping at inherent existence, we will never be able to negate it. I don't know if this is clear. I can only eliminate my mind that holds the flower as being of objective existence. Once first I need to recognize it, then I can say that's not true. Otherwise I remain in an intellectual, idealized idea that everything is subjective and interdependent. Beautiful. But it's disconnected from myself. Okay? So this is something that is very important. And why do we talk about emptiness? When we say something is empty, empty simply means a negation. When I say the flower is empty of inherent existence, I'm simply saying the flower is not of inherent existence. That's all. Doesn't mean that it's full of something and empty of something. It's not a matter of being full of empty. It's just a way of making a negation. So when I say the flower is of the nature of emptiness, means the flower is empty of something, which is inherent existence, which is the object of affirmation of ignorance. But I must go and look in which way the flower appears to me. And how do I grasp at the flower in a way that the flower is not? That's why we start by saying, consider all phenomena as dreams. What is the illusory aspect of the flower? How does it appear to me in a way that it is not? Once I'm able to see clearly which is the affirmation that I make, that is not true, then I can truly negate it. Otherwise, we just remain in a very generalized idea and we never really go to the point. Okay? So, the only way to develop wisdom is by seeing ignorance. Because in this case, ignorance is direct opposite of ignorance. Wisdom is the direct opposite of ignorance. And one is a negation, the other one is an affirmation. Center is all the same. We can make even a little drawing in which you put basis of imputation. The basis is the flower. The object is inherent existence. The ignorance is it is. Wisdom, it is not. The flower is of inherent existence. The flower is not of inherent existence. Now, graphically, if we can imagine, it's quite clear. So with this, we understand what is the wisdom and what is the ignorance. And actually, it's quite simple. Okay? So from this, we will go, maybe tomorrow we touch this quickly. Tomorrow we will explain what do we mean by the emptiness of emptiness. Okay? Because it means that emptiness itself can only exist because there is an object of emptiness. The negation can only, just take the following. Just now because it's clear in our mind, at least in mine, in which we put the flower, inherent existence, it is and it is not. Is this clear, this image? Okay? So now, we imagine what happened if I just take it is, or better, I just take it is not. Does it mean anything? No. It is not can only exist what is not, and is not of what. So the flower is not what? Inherent existence. So emptiness cannot exist without an object that is empty. And it cannot exist of being empty of something. I don't know if this is clear. It's like the three things put together, the flower, the negation, and inherent existence concept, these three things put together makes emptiness. Okay? In other words, emptiness cannot exist without having an object that is empty of inherent existence. Okay? So emptiness doesn't simply exist all by itself independently of everything else. Emptiness itself, it's also interdependence. It's also mutually dependent. Okay? This is the essence of this point. Okay? So, per concludere questa parte solo, and then tomorrow we are going to see how to meditate on emptiness and how to practice in between sessions, okay? Jetsun lame kotse rapten chi namkar tinle chochur gepadang losan tempe dreme sasumgi drove munse tatu negyurchi Nimo delle tsendele, nime kuyan dele, taptu dele pe kuncho sumke jingelo, kuncho sumke ngodrub tsol, kuncho sumke trashisho. At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness.